You have lived before, not as a metaphor, not as a spiritual concept to comfort yourself with. You have literally actually been here before, in a different body, in a different time, with a different name, with people around you who may or may not be the same souls wearing different faces in this life. You have loved before, you have lost before, you have died before, and something in you survived all of it and came back again. And here you are, again. Now here is the question that I know some of you came to this video with, because life has been hard enough, because you have watched people suffer for reasons that make no sense if this is the only life anyone gets, because fairness seems like a foreign concept on this planet and you have started to wonder whether coming back here was actually worth it. Can you remember who you were before this life? And when this one is over, when you finally lay this body down and walk through the door that every human being eventually walks through, what is waiting on the other side? And is it possible to look at what is waiting and say no? I am done. I am not coming back. This world is too hard and I choose not to return. I am going to answer all three of these questions today with the full truth. Not the religious answer, not the comfortable answer, the real one. The one that explains why you are here again despite everything. The one that explains what the other side actually looks like. And the one that gives you the most honest answer possible to whether a soul can choose to stop the cycle. Stay with me all the way to the end. Because the last answer is the one that will surprise you most. You asked whether you need to connect to the source first before you can remember a past life. And the honest answer is that it is not a requirement, but it is by far the most reliable path. Let me explain why, and then tell you what else actually works. Past life memory is not stored the same way your memory of yesterday is stored. The brain holds the memories of this lifetime because the brain was present for this lifetime. The brain was not present for previous lifetimes. Previous lifetimes were experienced by the soul, not by this particular brain and body, which means the memory of them is stored in the soul. And the soul is accessed through depth, through stillness, through the same inward direction we have discussed throughout this channel. Going toward the source and going toward past life memory are not the same journey, but they travel in the same direction. Inward, past the noise of the conditioned mind, into the deeper layers of what you actually are. This is why deep meditation and genuine inner stillness are the most reliable access points for past life memory. Not because the source shows you your past lives as a reward for connecting to it, but because accessing the soul's depth naturally makes available what the soul carries. And the soul carries everything, every lifetime, every experience, every relationship across every incarnation. It is all there, beneath the veil of forgetting that descends with every new birth. What else opens past life memory? But you asked whether you need the source connection first, and the answer is no, not always, because past life memory can surface through other routes. Let me tell you the ones that are genuinely documented and genuine in their results. The first route is spontaneous childhood memory. Children between the ages of 2 and 5, before the conditioning of the physical world has fully overwritten the soul's recent memory, sometimes speak about previous lives with a specificity and an accuracy that cannot be explained by anything they could have learned in this lifetime. They name places they have never visited. They describe people who died before they were born. They speak languages they were never taught. They carry phobias that correspond exactly to how they died in a previous incarnation. Thousands of these cases have been documented by researchers at serious institutions, including the University of Virginia, where Dr. Ian Stevenson spent 40 years collecting and verifying over 3,000 such cases. This research is not fringe. It is not conspiracy. It is peer-reviewed, carefully verified, published academic work that mainstream science finds deeply uncomfortable because it has no explanation for it that fits the current materialist framework. The children are not lying. Children do not fabricate the kind of specific verifiable detail that these cases contain. Something real is happening. The veil of forgetting has not yet fully descended, and the soul's recent memory is still accessible. The second route is past life regression through deep hypnosis. When a trained practitioner guides a person into a genuinely deep hypnotic state, the ordinary surface consciousness relaxes enough that the soul's deeper memory can sometimes surface. People consistently describe coherent, detailed, emotionally vivid experiences of what feel like previous lifetimes. The experiences carry a quality of reality entirely different from imagination or dream, and they frequently contain verifiable details that the person had no ordinary way of knowing. The third route is what I would call soul recognition, the moments in life when something hits you with a familiarity that has no basis in this lifetime. A place you visit for the first time that feels like home in a way that defies explanation. A skill that comes to you with a naturalness far beyond what your current life's practice would account for. A person you meet and immediately feel you have known before, something deeper than attraction or personality chemistry. A grief so immediate and so specific at something you encounter that its intensity makes no sense in the context of this life. These moments are the veil thinning briefly, the soul's memory pressing through into conscious awareness because the current experience resonates so strongly with the previous one that the boundary between lifetimes momentarily thins. So do you need the source connection first to access past life memory? No. But cultivating genuine inner stillness makes all of these routes more accessible and more clear, because the veil of forgetting is thinner when the noise of the conditioned mind is quieter, and what presses through the veil when it is thin is exactly the soul's memory of what came before. Now let me tell you what actually happens after you die. Not what religion promises, not what materialist science insists, which is nothing. What the deepest convergence of genuine spiritual knowledge, near-death experience research, and direct soul understanding points to as the truth. The moment physical death occurs, the soul withdraws completely from the body. The thread that kept it anchored to physical reality is released, and what the soul experiences in that release is described with remarkable consistency by every source that has genuinely touched this knowledge. The first experience is one of expansion, a sudden and complete release from the density, the limitation, and the pain of physical existence. People who have had near-death experiences describe this moment as indescribable relief, as suddenly being more themselves than they have ever been, as if the physical body, which felt like the real self during life, is suddenly recognized as the vehicle it always was. And what climbs out of the vehicle is vast, clear, and free in a way that physical life never allowed. The Life Review. After the initial release comes what almost every near-death experience account and every deep spiritual tradition describes as the Life Review. And this is nothing like the judgment scene that religion painted. There is no throne. There is no judge. There is no list of your sins being tallied against your good deeds. The Life Review is an experience in which the soul relives the entirety of the lifetime just completed, not as a memory replay from its own perspective, from every perspective simultaneously. Every moment of genuine love you gave another person, you feel it from their side as they received it. Every moment of pain you caused, you feel it from the other side as they experienced it. Every ripple of your presence in the world, every small kindness, every careless cruelty, every moment of genuine courage, every moment of cowardice, you feel the full impact of all of it on everyone it touched, not as punishment, as information, as the most complete and honest assessment of a lifetime that is possible. The soul sees clearly, possibly for the first time, exactly what it did with the life it was given, what it built, what it missed, what it gave, what it withheld, where it was aligned with its own deepest nature and where it missed the mark completely. And this review is conducted in the presence of something that people describe consistently as unconditional love, a presence that does not judge, that does not condemn, that holds the soul in complete acceptance while it sees itself clearly. That presence is the source itself. And the love it carries for the soul during this review is not diminished by anything the soul sees about itself. It is the love of the infinite for its own expression, regardless of what that expression did with its freedom. What comes after the review? After the Life Review, the soul moves into what different traditions describe differently, but which converges on the same essential reality. A period of rest, integration, and preparation in a dimension of existence between physical incarnations. Some traditions call it the bardo. Some call it purgatory in its original meaning before the church distorted it. Some call it the spirit world. Some call it simply the between. In this between state, the soul is reunited with other souls it has known across lifetimes. Not just the people it knew in the lifetime just completed, but souls it has been connected to across many lifetimes. The relationships that feel most profound in any given life. The ones that carry that quality of recognition and deep knowing from the very beginning, are almost always souls that have been traveling together across multiple incarnations. They find each other again in the between with the kind of recognition that physical reunion never fully captures, because in the between the veil is completely gone. The soul in the between state also has access to a clarity about its own journey that physical life never allows. It can see the arc of its development across all its lifetimes. It can see where it has grown, what it still carries as unresolved, what it came close to understanding and fell short of, what its deepest capacities are, and how fully or how poorly it has expressed them. This clarity is not painful in the way self-awareness can be painful during physical life. It is simply clear, like seeing a landscape from a high altitude that you spent years walking through at ground level. The whole picture becomes visible at once. Now, the question that I suspect is the most personally felt for some of the people watching this video. Can you choose not to come back? Can a soul, after reviewing a life that was painful and difficult, and sometimes seemingly unfair, look at the option of returning and say no? I am done. This world is too hard. I choose to stop. I am going to answer this with full honesty, in two parts, because the answer has two layers and both of them matter. The first part, yes, there is a choice. The soul is not forced to reincarnate. This is one of the clearest things I can say from the deepest place of understanding available to me. The source does not compel. It never compels. Free will is not suspended at the boundary of death. The soul retains genuine choice about whether and when and into what circumstances it returns. So yes, a soul can choose not to return, and some souls do exactly that. After a lifetime that completed a particular arc of development, after reaching a level of alignment with the source that makes further physical incarnation unnecessary for the soul's ongoing growth, a soul can choose to remain in the non-physical dimensions, to continue its development and contribution from there, rather than through another round of physical life. This is what every tradition that has genuinely engaged with this question describes as liberation. Moksha in the Hindu tradition, nirvana in the Buddhist tradition, the return to the Father's house in the mystical Christian tradition, the completion of the soul's physical journey and the beginning of its continued existence in dimensions closer to the source. So the choice is real. Reincarnation is not a sentence. It is a curriculum. And like any curriculum, the soul eventually completes it. The second part. And this is the one that will challenge you. But here is what I need to tell you honestly about the souls who feel most strongly that they do not want to come back. The souls who find this life most unfair, most painful, most exhausting, most difficult to justify returning to. Those souls are almost never the ones who are closest to completing the curriculum. I know that is hard to hear, but it is the truth. The feeling that life is too hard, that it is unfair, that coming back is not worth it, is almost always the feeling of a soul that is in the middle of its most important work, not near the end of it. The difficulty is not evidence that the soul has suffered enough and should be released. The difficulty is evidence that the soul is in the deepest part of the lesson it chose this lifetime to work through. The part that feels impossible is almost always the part just before the breakthrough. Think about what you know about any genuine growth. The hardest moment in any transformation is not the beginning. The beginning has the energy of new intention, and it is not the end. The end has the relief of completion. The hardest moment is always the middle, when you are too far in to go back and the destination is not yet visible. When the old self has been disrupted and the new self has not yet arrived. When everything feels uncertain and the suffering feels pointless because you cannot yet see what it is building. That feeling. That specific feeling of this is too hard and I do not want to do it anymore. That is almost always the feeling of someone who is right in the middle of their most important growth, not someone who has finished. And the soul in the between state, with the full clarity available there, almost always sees this. It sees the lifetime it just completed from the high altitude perspective. It sees how close it came to something important. It sees what it was building toward and how much of the building is still incomplete. And from that perspective, with the pain of the physical life no longer being physically felt, with the clarity of the between available, most souls do not choose to stop. They choose to continue. Not because they are forced to, because they can see what they were working toward and they want to complete it. The desire to stop is a physical life desire. It is felt most intensely in the body, in the nervous system, in the accumulated exhaustion of a difficult incarnation. And it is completely understandable. But it is not the soul's final wisdom. It is the body's exhaustion speaking. And the body, as we have discussed throughout this channel, is not the soul. When the body is set down and the soul stands in the clarity of the between, the question of whether to return looks different. Not easy, not simple, but different. The unfairness of the particular life just completed is seen in context of the full arc. And the context changes everything about how the choice is made. What about the unfairness? Does it not matter? And I want to address your specific word. Unfair. Because it matters and it deserves a direct answer. This life is unfair by every human standard of measurement. Children are born into suffering they did not choose. Good people carry burdens that bad people never touch. The distribution of pain and ease in this world makes no sense if you are only looking at this one lifetime. But the soul's journey is not one lifetime. And fairness, when you expand the frame to include the full arc of a soul's journey across all its incarnations, begins to look different. Not perfect. Not mathematically precise, but different. The soul that carries the heaviest burden in one lifetime is often the soul that carries the lightest in another. The soul that causes the most pain in one era is the soul that experiences the receiving end of that pain in another, not as punishment administered by an external judge, as the natural consequence of a universe where what you generate returns to you across the full arc of your journey. This is what karma actually is, not instant punishment, not a cosmic point system. The natural tendency of a universe built on the law of resonance to return to every soul the full experience of what that soul has generated across all its lifetimes, over whatever span of time and however many incarnations that process requires. The unfairness you feel in this lifetime is real. Do not let anyone dismiss it. It is real and it matters and it is felt, and the source is present in every moment of it. But it is not the whole picture. It is the current chapter of a much longer story. And the story, when it is finally read in full, tends to make sense in ways that the single chapter never could. You came in with 3 questions. Can you remember your past lives without connecting to the source first? You do not need the source connection as a prerequisite, but going inward is the most reliable path to the memory, because the memory lives in the soul, and the soul is accessed through depth. Children access it naturally before the veil fully descends. Hypnotic regression can access it. And the moments of inexplicable recognition in your daily life are the veil thinning on its own, when something in the present resonates deeply enough with something from the past. What happens after you die? You are released from the density of physical existence into an expansion that people who have touched it describe as more real than anything physical life contains. You review your lifetime from every perspective simultaneously, held in the presence of unconditional love that does not judge but shows you clearly. And then you rest, integrate, and reconnect with the souls that have been traveling alongside you across more lifetimes than this one. Can you choose not to come back? Yes. The choice is real. The soul is never compelled. But the desire to stop returning, felt most intensely by the souls who find this life most difficult and most unfair, is almost always the feeling of someone in the middle of their most important work rather than someone who has finished. The between state brings a clarity about this that physical life does not allow, and most souls standing in that clarity choose to continue, not because they are forced to, because they can see what they are building toward, and they want to see it through. You are not here by accident. You are not here because the universe is cruel. You are here because something in you, at a level deeper than this personality and this body, and this particular set of painful experiences, knew that this was the next chapter worth living. That knowing does not make the difficulty less real, but it does make it less meaningless. And a difficulty that has meaning is an entirely different thing to carry than one that does not. Share this with someone who has been asking whether any of it is worth it. Subscribe to Truth Frequency AI. And come back. Because every answer we find together adds another piece to the picture of what you actually are and why you are actually here.